Uniform Commercial Code Article 9 governs consensual security interests in goods and other personal property. A security interest secures payment or performance of an obligation, and it generally gives the secured creditor the right to foreclose on the collateral if the obligor defaults. Article 9's requirements to create a security interest are pretty straightforward most of the time, but these rules caused the parties to have a cow in the case of Border State Bank of Greenbush versus Bagley Livestock Exchange. In late 1997 and early 1998, Bert Johnson and Hal Anderson entered a cattle sharing agreement. Anderson would breed and care for cattle that Johnson owned, and Johnson would get a guaranteed annual percentage of calves born to the cattle. Also, the contract specified that Johnson, doing business as Johnson Farms, would continue to own the cattle. Any calves sold were to be sold under Johnson Farms' name, and Johnson would get the proceeds minus a percentage to Anderson for keeping the cattle. Later, Johnson asked Anderson to care for additional cattle. Initially, Anderson declined, but he later agreed under modified terms. For instance, under the new terms, Johnson was to provide beet tails for feed. In March of 2000, Anderson borrowed over $155,000 from Border State Bank, giving the bank a security interest in all of Anderson's rights and any livestock then owned or acquired later. In November, Johnson reclaimed many cattle from Anderson after Anderson encountered unanticipated difficulty caring for them. In December, Anderson sold almost 300 of the calves remaining with him through Bagley Livestock Exchange. Johnson apparently owned all these calves. Bagley knew about the bank's security interest, but determined, after discussions with Johnson, that the security interest didn't attach to the calves. Bagley issued Johnson a check for the proceeds, and Johnson remitted a portion to Anderson after deducting for feed costs. Border State Bank sued both Johnson and Bagley in Minnesota State Court, alleging conversion of its security interest. Johnson filed a third-party complaint for indemnity against Anderson, who counterclaimed for breach of contract. Johnson and Bagley moved for a directed verdict against the bank. The trial court granted the motion, holding that Anderson couldn't grant a security interest in the cattle because Johnson, not Anderson, owned them. The bank appealed to the Minnesota Court of Appeals.